Okay, I'm going to call the first meeting of the Boise Districting Commission into session. Clerk, do you want to call the roll?
Love, Perry, Peter, Spiker,
Here.
Valderrama Echeverria. Here.
Great, thank you. Thank you all to the commissioners for being here and for your time, and those of you who came to observe today. Today is going to be a pretty brief meeting and mostly just an intro to the commission of the work they're going to do. We're going to go through some basics, Robert's rules. You all will elect a chair and a vice chair. I'll go through some of the procedures and the duties of the commission tonight, and then I'll turn it over to Eric to do an intro about the census data and also the mapping software that you'll be seeing a brief intro now and some training later. So with that, I'll turn it over to Rob.
I think it is now. Yep. And feel free to interrupt me at any time during my brief remarks. I know I'm scheduled for 15 minutes. I'm hoping to keep it just high level and get the board through just electing a chair and vice chair. I'll be in the back corner through most of your meetings, along with Jane Hochberg, my colleague. I will also be assisting you in addition to Hannah, our staff member. Your first order of business today is to elect a chair. You accomplish this just as you do any other action of the commission by a motion. So you can either, for this initial election, you can either simply nominate someone, you can always nominate yourself, or you can do it by a formal motion. But it does need a second, and it does need approval of the majority of the members. Once the chair has been elected, they'll take over running the meeting. The general duties of the chair are to just generally run the business of the meeting, but also to preserve decorum and order. So Robert's Rules of Order does not actually disallow the chair from making a motion, but Robert's Rules of Order does discourage chairs of small boards or commissions from making motions. So as a chair, your primary duty will simply be to run the meeting. That being said, I mean, you certainly are within your right to make a motion. You have all the same rights and privileges of any other member, but generally we do ask that the chair refrain from making a motion and just leading the meeting. The vice chair pretty much has all the same duties if the chair is not present. So vice chair can certainly always make a motion. A motion is always in order. Does not have to ask for permission to make a motion. But if they do step into the role of the chair, if the chair is absent, we would ask them to just act like the chair and not make a motion, just simply run the meeting. So I just kind of want to let people know what they're getting into. If you want the honor of being chair or vice chair. So I wrote just like a few things down. I wanted to keep this high level, but I am, like I said, I'm certainly open to any questions, and you can go as basic as you like or as esoteric as you like, and I'll try to do my best to answer it. But generally speaking, official business of the commission can only be conducted by motion. So if the commission, decides to take a course of action, it's in order for one member to make motion and then see if it's seconded, and then to see if you can obtain a majority of votes. Two, generally speaking, members should ask leave of the chair when asking questions or making comments or entering in debate. It helps us keep a nice clean record of who says what, when, and what happens. Part of the important role that our clerk has in this is keeping minutes of these meetings. And the minutes are very important, not only required by state code, but they'll bring them back for your approval each meeting to make sure that they're accurate. Motions should be succinct and try to limit them to one topic. So what I've found is the more convoluted a motion, the harder it is for the clerk or your friendly attorneys or Hannah to interpret. So if you can keep it simple for people like me, that's very helpful. Not to say that we haven't seen some very convoluted motions in my time, and we'll certainly, it's your purview to make the motion as a member that you see fit. And lastly, as I mentioned, all official business of the commission must be conducted through motion practice. But a few other little points is that you can only conduct business if you have a quorum of your members here. That number is 3. If you do not have a quorum, the only action you can take as a board is try to create a quorum or adjourn. And lastly, we do post an agenda, not just to be transparent, but also because the law requires it. And I'd simply ask that to the best ability of your ability to stick to the topics that are listed on the agenda. And if you're feeling like you're getting topics that you want on a future agenda, if you just contact Hannah or staff member, we'll do our level best to get something on the agenda at an appropriate time so you can debate that in a transparent manner. If you have any questions about parliamentary procedure, Robert's rules, open meetings, anything like that, I'm happy to answer them right now. Otherwise, I will let Hannah go ahead and kind of oversee your first election. And once we have a chair, we can let the chair take over from there to the election of the vice chair.
So between. Yeah. Could you clarify how discussion is handled once a motion has been made and seconded?
Absolutely. Pardon the enthusiasm in my voice. I kind of like procedure. And I'll be a little technical because I love being technically correct. Robert's rules tends to focus and prefer that before debate occurs, that there is a motion that is seconded on the table to debate. Now, I'm sure many of you, some have been on our other boards and commissions. I'm sure you've all seen city council, and that's not a hard and fast rule. And there are some topics that I kind of refer to as a matzo ball. It's big and it's hard to get your head around without actually debating it first, and emotion will come out of that. But generally speaking, we do prefer to have a motion on the table that's seconded. The chair will open it up debate and then recognize various members. That answer your question? All right, great. Well, I'm going to take my spot. That's where you usually will find me. Also, feel free anytime that you have any sort of a question regarding procedure, you can walk right back to me. I'm paying attention, I promise you, and listening to every word to make sure that I'm not caught off guard by a question. So I'm always here to help. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you. Okay, so now we are moving to the election of the chair. As Rob said, you can nominate yourself or someone else or make a motion. So that is on the table.
I'll nominate myself for chair.
Okay, any discussion?
Second.
Second. Any discussion?
Nope.
Do we need to do roll call for this? No? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, congratulations. I'm going to come give you the gavel and you get to run the rest of the meeting.
Who would like to nominate themselves or nominate someone or themselves for vice chair?
Madam Chair, I'd be happy to serve as the vice chair. So I guess I can self-nominate myself as the vice chair.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded. And we'll vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It looks like we'll be moving on to the districting commission duties and procedures overview.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just, oh, yep. Okay, thank you. I don't think I introduced myself at the beginning. I've introduced myself to all of you. I'm Hannah Brass-Greer, Director of Strategic Initiatives. And tonight I'm just going to do a brief overview. This may be a review if you watch the process of the drafting of the commission ordinance. But I'm going to go over the general duties of the commission and the process that you'll go through. Yeah. So the commission was created by the council as required by Idaho code. We do have districts now. We do have a district map. Those were developed by a consultant. We had a short turnaround time to do that a couple of years ago, but the council wanted to go with this new route, going a districting commission to have a more open and transparent and collaborative process. So the legislature in 2020 passed legislation that requires cities of over 100,000 inhabitants to elect their city council members by districts. They have to be established no later than 120 days before the election. They need to include one or more contiguous precincts and also have as close to the same number of people as possible in each district. And then, of course, they all have to correspond with the number of council seats, which for us are 6. As I mentioned, the council opted for a commission model. The state did not delineate what process we had to draw the maps by. So council decided again for this open process of commission. And the basic powers and duties of the commission are to apply the census data, to create the districts, and then also to act independently and make decisions without regard to where current city council members live or where candidates live. And just as Rob said, if you have questions as I go, please stop me. We'll also have time at the very end to ask questions as well. So just an overview of the ordinance. Again, this is a recurring theme. You're going to evaluate that census data to develop the districts, number them from 1 to 6. The ordinance requires that you have at least one public hearing. And then once you all deliberate and land on a map and 3 of you approve that, you will send that to City Council for additional public hearing and final adoption. In addition to the ordinance, the council has also adopted policies to help guide you in the process. Some of the requirements in the policies are the same as the statute and the ordinance. So again, substantially equal populations in each of the districts. Keep communities of interest like neighborhood associations whole to the extent possible. The same goes for election precincts and census tracts. And then if you do end up having to divide some of those neighborhood associations or precincts, we ask that you keep that to a minimum and then highlight that in the map so the public is able to see that. How will you do all this? Well, you will not be alone. City staff and experts will support you in this process. And you're welcome, as Rob said, to ask me for things for future meetings, to put items on the agenda, resources that you need. But this is the type of resources that we expect you may want. Certainly, you'll have administrative support, the GIS and mapping system and staff, and also related to the census data, the demographics and population distribution, and then just general apportionment and districting help. Again, you'll have that software and you'll have the data. Our staff will help you, and a number of you have experience in this area, so I'm sure you'll be able to do that as well, and then all of the staffing available. Another important piece to council was the public input. So written comments are invited and accepted by the commission throughout the whole process. The commission does have an email that folks can send their general or specific comments related to some of the plans that you'll look at. And that is available up to 1 week after the public hearing for your review. And then also residents will have the opportunity to use our mapping software. So at some point, we will make the mapping software available to the public. The public will be able to create their own districting map plans, and the commission will take those under consideration as well at the public hearing. So I would like to propose a timeline of meetings for you all. And so once I go through this, and feel free to ask me questions about the process, I'd ask that you make a motion to accept these dates if they sound okay to you. So again, tonight we're here for our intro meeting. In between tonight's meeting and the next meeting on the 21st will be when you will work with our staff to get some additional one-on-one training on the mapping software. And then at that 21st and 28th meeting, that's when you'll begin to do work yourselves, developing maps. You're welcome to ask staff to bring drafts to you. Any other presentations or information you'd like before you start considering map drafts, we're happy to bring those to you on those meetings. And then on September 29th, we plan to turn on the mapping software for the public. The public will have a couple of weeks to get into the software, develop and submit their map proposals. And then you'll have a little bit of time between when the software is closed to the public to review those before the 19th meeting. That is the meeting we propose to have public testimony accepted on any drafts that you all as a commission have put forward and that the public has put forward. And then on the 26th, if all goes well, you will deliberate and determine which map you will approve as a commission. That then, as I mentioned, goes to the city council for approval. And our plan is to have it adopted by their last meeting in December, and they have 3 readings. So we'll want to get that to them in November, and they will adopt by the end of the year so that folks in the city have time to see where the new district lines are. And if folks are interested in running, they will know where they fall. Does anyone have any questions about that plan? No? Okay.
Madam Chair, for a motion.
I recognize I'll have to your name.
Commissioner Perry.
Commissioner Perry.
I move to approve the proposed meeting schedule as presented.
Are there any seconds?
Second.
Sorry. All in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So proposed meeting schedule is adopted. Next, it looks like we're going to move on to the GIS tool and census overview.
Bear with me just for a moment. We'll get a few things prepped up. So my name is Eric Wing. I'm with the GIS group in IT. Most of you have heard of GIS. If you haven't before, it stands for Geographic Information Systems, and it is a digital mapping technology. This is kind of interesting for me because we're pulled out from the bowels of IT to help you with this, only because your duties are largely centered around drafting a map. So my role is to provide you the data and, to the extent possible, tools that you can use yourself to draft up boundaries. That also includes helping provide an application for citizens to submit their own boundaries. Over the course of the last couple months, we've been seeking out vendors that provide such solutions. What I have up on the screen, I'll make this a little bigger, is an example of the solution that you will have access to and citizens. We're still configuring the setup for Boise right now, but effectively it will look and feel very much like this. What it's designed to do is take a jurisdiction, in this case the city limits, carve it up into the appropriate number of districts. And then as you're using the tools to build those districts, it will dynamically calculate the population and many other demographics of those districts so you can compare on the fly. And so you'll be able to use this to dynamically build proposed districts and then collect those for the citizens and ultimately review them. The solution that you'll be using will also have background information such as the current neighborhood associations and county election precincts. So you'll be able to use it as a backdrop to compare. It will be a challenge to try to get line work that's going to meet every demand that's been asked of you, but this software will give you some flexibility. And then my role will be to come in and anything that needs any refinement that the software cannot do itself to help provide that based on the direction that you provide me. One of the other tools we have available might be this platform. Some of you might be familiar with Esri's ArcGIS online web platform. Some of your organizations I know use this. I wanted you to get a flavor for the information that you'll be looking at and what the data will be. As directed by the commission, I will provide not only data to you, but also whatever needs to be available to the citizens to say, this is the information that we're basing criteria on. What I have up here is the current Boise city limits. Then I have the 2020 census data shown by a proportional symbol based on population numbers for the city. As was mentioned before, the previous council districts were based on 2010 data, and as I'm sure will not be a surprise, there's been a slight population increase in Boise since 2010. Just to give you an idea of some of the information I might be able to pull available for you, I've highlighted the subdivisions that have been developed within the last 10 years. This just gives you a rough idea of where development has come in terms of residential and other subdivisions. Shouldn't be any surprise, along the periphery edge of towns and out by Harris Ranch, a lot's been made available. Also, you'll be able to see the neighborhood association boundaries, how they match up with the current city limits and ultimately with the census data. And then also we can pull up Ada County's current election precincts. As you start pulling all this information together, you can get a little unwieldy to try to make heads or tails of it, but there are things that I can do cartographically to help that explain why certain decisions were made by the commission and then highlight those on these maps. I've got a number of tools available that I can help to articulate decisions and really explain them as clearly as possible. And with that, I'm open up to questions.
Any questions?
Madam Chair. I just have a question about, I don't know what one we should be looking at, but when we talk about like substantially equal, when we talk about the populations within each city council zone, does it show on either map, like, will it be able to tell us an estimate? Is it exact? Like how, I guess I'm just trying to think about what substantially equal should look like. And
Sure.
it feels like a little bit of a subjective term. And I just didn't know if there was a target for that, or if we're able to see that on the mapping system, and how kind of, is it going to be exact? Is it going to give us a wiggle room? Like, what does that look like? Thank you.
Perfectly fair question. We'll have to go back to the Idaho legislature to find out. They do have a percentage that is referenced in there, and I don't remember exactly what it was. I want to say it was 5 to 10%, but it is in there to see this is how much you can. The population numbers are going to be based on what's published by the U.S. Census Bureau, so they're as accurate as the census was able to get it. It's the best information you'll be able to get. But yes, there will have to be some balance. They will not be exact matches, whether those differences are between 23 people in certain districts, but the narrower we can keep the range between the districts. So if they're hovering around maybe 2 to 5%, you'll be in a really good solid spot to justify why boundaries were drawn where they were.
Madam Chair, may I add to that?
Go ahead.
There is a document that we received that was presented when the original district map was set up. And it does get into how that's calculated. Rather than trying to explain it, I would suggest you take a look at that. It gets into the percentages and how you compare this district to that district and look at it globally to see. And fortunately, in the last district, last mapping, it was very small percentage. It was very, very close. But there were a couple of districts that they spot as being likely to be grown, yeah, and would have to be dealt with. So it's a good starting point. And it looked like in the tool, it shows those percentages as you're dealing with, which is really nice. So we don't have to do the math ourselves. Yeah.
That's correct. And one of the reasons we selected this tool was how easily it presented you with dynamic feedback as you're building it. So you can make refinements on the fly and the citizens will be able to do the same thing.
Mhm.
I have a question, so I'll recognize myself. Are there any demographic type tools built in, or is it just straight population data?
There's an assortment of demographic information, race, ethnicity. I'll have to double check on income. A lot of it is based solely on age and then ethnicity and race.
Okay.
But population, I know, is the largest driving force, but you have the ability to compare a lot of those other demographics on the fly as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any more questions?
Madam Chair, I just have an answer from Jane Council, who is remotely with us on your question about what does substantially equal mean. So Idaho code says just to the nearest extent possible. Case law says about or no more than 10%. She's advising that we stick to Idaho code, which is just as close as possible. Mm-hmm.
All right, with that, I think we will move on to more questions. If anyone has general questions, I think.
Madam Chair, less of a question than more of a comment, if I may.
I recognize Commissioner Perry.
Thank you. I've already let Hannah and the staff know, but I will be unable to attend the October 19th meeting. And Hannah was gracious enough to let me know that that was really when the big public hearing was going to be. But I just wanted to make sure on the record for the rest of the commissioners that I'll be unfortunately attending and putting on a meeting of myself in Southern Idaho. So I will just watch the public testimony remotely. If I can attend part of the meeting, I will, but otherwise I'll be watching all the public testimony later on in a recording. So thank you.
Thank you for that. Anyone else? At this point, we can adjourn. Do I hear a motion for adjournment?
Madam Chair, can I make a motion that we adjourn the meeting?
I recognize Spiker. Sorry, last name.
Spiker.
Spiker. Commissioner Spiker.
Second motion.
Motion is seconded. Ayes. Please vote aye if you are in agreement.
Aye.
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 Adjourned.